The woods behind the Miller farm had always been a place of rules, whispered from older brother to younger. Never go in after dark. Never answer a voice that calls your name. Never ever follow the strange lights. Leo, at 16, took these rules with the grim seriousness of a guardian. His 7-year-old brother Sam treated them as a thrilling part of the forest's mystery. That night, Sam had dared him. Full moon hung like a luminous pockmarked coin in the sky, casting long, distorted shadows. Sam wanted to see the old oak in the center of the grove, the one the local kids said was haunted. "It's just a story, Leo. We'll be 5 minutes," Sam had pleaded, his eyes wide with excitement. Against his better judgment, Leo had relented. The forest was different under the moon. The familiar path was a ribbon of silver and pitch, and the sounds were wrong. The usual chorus of crickets and frogs was absent, replaced by a silence so profound it felt like a physical pressure on the eardrums. That's when they saw him. He was standing between 2 slender birch trees, a figure too tall and too still. He wore a suit of pure black, seamless and unnerving, and his limbs were elongated, jointed all wrong. Where his face should have been, there was only a smooth, featureless expanse of white. He had no eyes, but they felt his gaze a cold, psychic weight that promised nothing but emptiness. Leo's blood turned to ice. Every primal instinct screamed one word: run. Sam, however, was mesmerized. "A man," he whispered, taking a half-step forward. "Sam, no?" Leo's voice was a strangled gasp. He grabbed for his brother's arm, but it was too late. The air grew frigid. The slender man did not move, but the space around Sam seemed to distort. Pale, tentacle-like appendages, boneless and slick, unfurled from the creature's back, stretching across the clearing without the rest of its body shifting an inch. One wrapped around Sam's ankle. The touch was not a grip. It was a fusion. The skin where it touched turned a necrotic gray, withering instantly. Sam was yanked off his feet, his small body skidding through the leaf litter. His wide-eyed fascination shattered into pure, uncomprehending terror. Leo. Leo charged, a roar of denial tearing from his throat. He was strong for his age, but he was just a boy. Second tentacle lashed out, catching him across the chest and throwing him back against a tree. The impact knocked the wind from his lungs, stars exploding in his vision. He could only watch, helpless, as the horror unfolded. The tentacles lifted Sam into the air, coiling around his limbs, his torso, his neck stifling his screams. They constricted. A wet, sickening crunch echoed through the silent grove, the sound of a small spine snapping. Sam's body went limp. The slender man held the broken form for a moment, a grotesque marionette, before the tentacles began to retract, pulling the small body towards the featureless face, as if to absorb it into the void of its being. A grief so vast it shattered the world erupted in Leo's chest. It was a pain beyond tears, a white-hot agony that felt like his very soul was being torn in two. He pounded his fists against the ground, a raw, animal scream of loss tearing from his throat. He screamed for his brother. He screamed for his parents. He screamed at the monstrous injustice of it all. And deep within his blood, something ancient and wild heard his call. It started as a fire in his veins, a searing heat that burned away the human grief and replaced it with a feral, all-consuming rage. His bones began to crack and realign with sounds like gunshots. His muscles swelled, tearing through his clothes. A pelt, of course, gray fur sprouted from his skin, and his face elongated into a snarling muzzle filled with daggers. The transformation was not a graceful change, but a violent, painful rebirth. In moments where the boy Leo had been, a massive, powerfully built werewolf now stood, its golden eyes burning with a singular, homicidal purpose. The Slenderman, having discarded Sam's small, broken body to the forest floor, turned its blank gaze toward the new threat. The werewolf did not hesitate. It launched itself across the clearing with explosive force, a blur of muscle and fury. It was not fighting for territory or food. It was fighting for vengeance. The fight was a clash of two different kinds of horror. The Slender Man was unnatural, a creature of silence and psychic dread. The werewolf was primal, a force of nature's raw, bloody fury. The werewolf's claws, like curved knives, raked across the Slender Man's torso. They did not tear fabric or flesh, but instead ripped through the very fabric of its form, leaving weeping black tears in reality that bled static. The creature recoiled, a silent scream of agony vibrating through the air. A tentacle whipped out, wrapping around the werewolf's throat, its corrosive touch burning the fur and skin beneath. The werewolf roared, the sound shaking the trees. It bit down on the tentacle, its powerful jaws severing the appendage with a crunch. Substance that was not blood, but a thick black ichor that smelled of ozone and rot, sprayed from the stump. The severed tentacle writhed on the ground like a dying snake before dissolving into a foul-smelling mist. The Slenderman staggered back, its form flickering. It lashed out with more tentacles, trying to ensnare the raging beast, to drain its life as it had drained Sam's. But the werewolf's rage was a shield. It tore through them, a whirlwind of claws and teeth, each strike fueled by the memory of his brother's final terrified cry. With a final mighty leap, the werewolf slammed into the Slenderman, driving it to the ground. It pinned the writhing entity, its golden eyes staring into the blank white face. It brought its powerful jaws down on the thing's head. There was a sound like shattering porcelain, and the Slenderman's form dissolved into a cloud of frantic, panicked static before collapsing inward on itself and vanishing, leaving behind only the lingering smell of decay and a deep psychic scar on the clearing. The rage vanished as quickly as it had come. The werewolf form receded, the fur retracting, the bones shrinking back with agonizing cracks. Leo collapsed onto the cold ground, naked, shivering, and utterly broken. The memory of what had happened flooded back, unsoftened by the beast's fury. He crawled to his brother's body. Sam lay where he had been dropped, small and fragile. Leo gathered him into his arms, rocking back and forth, his tears now falling freely, dripping onto his brother's cold, still face. The sobs that racked his body were silent, filled with a pain that no sound could ever express. As the first light of dawn tinged the sky, Leo, using his own bare hands and a sharp stone, dug a grave at the base of the old oak tree. It was a slow, painful process, his human hands bleeding by the end. He wrapped Sam in his own torn jacket and laid him gently in the earth. He spoke then, his voice a hoarse whisper. "I'm so sorry, Sam. I was supposed to protect you." He placed a small, smooth stone from the creek they loved on the fresh mound of dirt. "I loved you so much, more than anything." He stood there as the sun rose, a lone figure in a grove that was once again just a grove. He had won the fight. He had slain the monster. But as he turned and walked away, leaving a part of his soul buried in that shallow grave, he knew with a chilling certainty that the victory was empty. The real horror wasn't the thing in the suit. It was the silence that was left behind. It was the memory of a small hand in his, and the crushing, eternal weight of a promise he could never keep.